Ysanne Isard ran Imperial Intelligence for the last 18 months of Palpatine's life. She controlled the Krytos virus that nearly killed Coruscant after the Empire's evacuation. She captured the Super Star Destroyer Lusankya, a 19,000-meter Executor-class flagship the Empire kept buried under Coruscant. She turned it into her personal prison ship and command center. Natasi Daala spent the entire Galactic Civil War commanding 4 Imperial-class Star Destroyers from inside the Maw Installation, the secret Imperial research site that built the Death Star. When she emerged after Endor, she had a fleet nobody knew existed. Either one of them was a Tarkin-tier antagonist. Disney gave us Snoke. 2 women, 2 arcs, 1 indictment. Today, we go through both of them, page by page, ship by ship, and at the end, the receipts will be on the table. The Lusankya is documented. The Krytos virus is documented. The Maw Installation is documented. The 4 Star Destroyers are named. The Disney decision is in writing. Snoke's screen time is in the films. The comparison runs itself. Start with Isard. Michael A. Stackpole's X-Wing Rogue Squadron was published by Bantam Spectra in January of 1996. The first novel in a series that would run 9 books in 5 years, anchored on its first 4 by Stackpole's antagonist, a tall, slender Imperial Intelligence officer with long black hair, a right eye that was ice blue and cruel, and a left eye that was molten red with golden highlights. The eyes were the tell. The character was the daughter of Armand Isard, the previous director of Imperial Intelligence. Armand had run the Senate Bureau of Intelligence under the Old Republic, and had transferred the directorate into the Empire when the Republic became the Empire in 19 BBY. Armand trained his daughter as a field agent from a young age. He expected her to follow him. He did not expect her to plot against him. She accused him of treason. The Emperor's royal guards backed her up. Palpatine had Armand executed within the hour. Ysanne took her father's chair. Stackpole gave us that in the X-Wing series and the prequel novella material around it. The character was built as a patricidal field agent who had risen by killing the man who trained her. That is the antagonist Stackpole handed Bantam in 1996. For context, Stackpole was not somebody who came to Star Wars cold. He was a working role-playing game designer who had built combat systems and intelligence operations for tabletop publishers since the late 70s. He researched real-world World War II pilots for the X-Wing setting. He consulted with Timothy Zahn, who had written the original 1991 Thrawn trilogy for Bantam, and with Kevin J. Anderson, who was running his own Jedi Academy material in parallel. The X-Wing series was Bantam Spectra's biggest Star Wars hit of the decade, and the success drove the publisher to commission Aaron Alston's Wraith Squadron trilogy and Stackpole's eventual return for Isard's Revenge. The Isard arc was the spine of the franchise's most-read Fighter Squadron series. The character did not sit in a footnote. She drove the books. But the patricide is the setup. The campaign is what followed. In Stackpole's continuity, Isard ran Imperial Intelligence for the final 18 months of Palpatine's reign, then survived the Emperor's death on the second Death Star and inherited the wreckage. The wreckage was not nothing. The wreckage was Coruscant, the capital world, and the Lusankya, an Executor-class Super Star Destroyer that the Empire had quietly buried beneath the capital's surface years before. The Lusankya was the sister ship to Vader's Executor, 19 kilometers long, 8 massive engines, a crew complement in the tens of thousands. The Empire had taken the second Executor-class flagship off the manifests, hidden it inside a super frame of girders and electronics disguised as a planetary power generator, and rebuilt the cityscape over it. That is in the Stackpole Bantam record. The Lusankya was claimed to be a large power generator, with the city subsequently rebuilt over the ship to hide its location. The likely original purpose, according to the in-universe sourcebooks, was to give Palpatine a secure escape vessel in case Coruscant was invaded. The Emperor died on the Death Star before he ever boarded it. Isard inherited the ship. She turned it into her private prison. Thousands of high-value New Republic operatives, captured Jedi sympathizers, and dissidents were held inside the buried flagship, broken under interrogation, and listed as disappeared. The interrogation methodology was systematic. The prisoner roster was off-record. The ship was a city inside a city, with no surface presence. Here is what nobody mentions. The Lusankya was not just a flagship Isard captured. It was an instrument she ran the Empire's remaining intelligence apparatus through, with the cover of being underneath the New Republic's seat of government, while the New Republic was holding press conferences 30 levels above her. That image is in Stackpole's text. The New Republic did not know its capital was sitting on top of a Super Star Destroyer. Isard did. And the cinematic version writes itself. Picture the moment, on the page in the Back to War, where the Lusankya breaks orbit. It does not lift off from a docking bay. It does not depart from a shipyard. It rips through Coruscant's planetary shields from below. A 19-kilometer command ship punching upward through the surface architecture of the galactic capital. Plates of cityscapes sliding off its hull, atmosphere bleeding around it. The New Republic's air defense grid sounding alarms for an attack vector nobody had a contingency for. That is the kind of image science fiction had not staged before. That is what Stackpole wrote in 1997. That is what Disney owned the rights to from October of 2012 forward. The second instrument was the virus. The Krytos virus was a genetically engineered bioweapon designed by General Evir Dericote on orders from Isard. Stackpole drew the inspiration from Richard Preston's nonfiction book, The Hot Zone, the 1994 bestseller about hemorrhagic fevers and the Reston, Virginia Monkey House Marburg incident. Stackpole submitted an outline with the virus included and adapted Preston's material into something specifically more disturbing. Krytos infected only non-humans. It broke down the host body cell by cell until the victim's flesh dissolved. The disease killed millions on Coruscant. The cure was Bacta, and the Bacta supply came from a single planet, Thyphera, which Isard then maneuvered to control as the New Republic was forced to spend its entire treasury keeping Coruscant's non-human population alive. That is one operation. One. A bioweapon that targeted non-humans on the capital world, a cure that ran through a single choke point planet, and a finance attack disguised as a humanitarian crisis. It was published in X-Wing, The Krytos Trap, Bantam Spectra, 1996. It was followed by X-Wing, The Back to War, Bantam, early 1997, in which Rogue Squadron, undermanned, deprived of Alliance support, deprived of weapons, went after Isard at Thyphera without official New Republic backing, because the political cost of an open war over Bacta was higher than the New Republic could pay. The squadron took the war freelance. The endgame ran over Thyphera. Tycho Celchu fired on a shuttle believed to be carrying Isard. The shuttle came apart. Wedge Antilles boarded the Lusankya and took command. Isard, by the closing of the book, was presumed dead. The Lusankya passed to the New Republic. The Back to War, published in 1997. Aaron Alston's Wraith Squadron, the fifth X-Wing novel, ran in February of 1998, with the Imperial Warlord Zinj as the antagonist. The Stackpole Isard arc looked finished. Then, in April of 1999, Stackpole released X-Wing, Isard's Revenge, the eighth in the series, and Isard came back. The mechanism was a clone. The in-novel explanation was that the Isard at Thyphera had been the real Isard, and a body-double clone had been operating alongside the warlord Krenel in the years after. Isard, the original, surfaces from hiding, bargains state-of-the-art TIE defenders and the location of Jan Dodonna and the Lusankya's surviving prisoners in exchange for Rogue Squadron killing the clone and finishing Krenel. The trade goes through. The clone dies. The real Isard dies shortly after. That is the documented end of Stackpole's Isard. Fans have argued about the clone reveal ever since. The complaint is that Stackpole had the cleaner option, make the Back to War's Isard the clone, which would have explained behavioral shifts that some readers had noticed in Book 4, and didn't take it. The clone as Krenel's handler is underdeveloped. The dispute is real within Legends fandom. It has never been resolved by primary text. The point for the script is that the dispute exists, that it is contained inside one author's body of work, and that the body of work was not erased by it. The novels are still in print. The Penguin Random House Legends reissue line republished Isard's Revenge in 2021. The arc is still on the shelf. What is documented is that across 4 novels and 1 sequel, Rogue Squadron, Wedge's Gamble, The Krytos Trap, The Back to War, and Isard's Revenge, Stackpole gave the Empire a female antagonist with patricide in her backstory, a 19-kilometer Super Star Destroyer under her command, a species-specific bioweapon as her opening move, and a 2-year guerrilla campaign run from a back-to-production planet she had captured. 5 books, over 1,500 pages of on-page action. The character is on the shelf. That is one of them. Daala is the other one. Natasi Daala's first canonical appearance is in Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Search, published by Bantam Spectra in March of 1994, 2 years before Stackpole's first Isard book. Anderson's setup was that Daala had been hidden the entire time. She was the first woman to reach the rank of admiral in the Imperial Navy, discovered by Grand Moff Wilhuff Tarkin after she had defeated skilled Imperial opponents in simulated combat exercises under an alias to hide her identity. Tarkin recognized the tactical mind, took her under his wing, and as he rose through the ranks, she rose with him. Anderson told the reader that Daala was Tarkin's protege and his lover, in that order. The protege status the public-facing fact, the personal relationship something Daala remembered in private. Anderson did not write the romance scenes. He wrote Daala remembering Tarkin and using the memory as motivation. Where Tarkin put her is what matters. Tarkin built a black site research facility hidden inside the Maw, a cluster of black holes near the Kessel system that the Empire had charted and the New Republic had not. The Maw Installation existed off every official map. The Death Star was researched and designed there. The technology trees that became the Death Star, the Sun Crusher, and a handful of other Imperial superweapons were developed inside the Maw under Daala's command. Tarkin gave her a fleet to defend the installation. 4 Imperial-class Star Destroyers, built by Kuat drive yards over Kuat in 1 BBY, Gorgon, Basilisk, Hydra, and Manticore, plus 2 Crusader-class corvettes. 4 flagship-grade warships, 3 years before the Battle of Yavin, kept off the Empire's order of battle, sitting inside a black hole cluster, with a female admiral in command and the Death Star plans sitting in the design labs next door. Then the Battle of Endor happened. The Emperor died. The galaxy collapsed into Imperial successor warlords and a new republic that was struggling to hold the worlds it had taken. And inside the Maw, Daala spent years not knowing. The Maw was so deeply hidden that the news traveled slowly. She had no superior to take orders from. She had no enemy in front of her. She had a fleet, a research site, and a black hole cluster between her and a galaxy she did not know had changed. She emerged in 11 ABY. That is the Jedi Search timeline. Anderson opens the book with Han Solo flying into the Maw as a prisoner and finding the installation, finding the fleet, finding the admiral. Daala learns the Emperor is dead. She learns the Empire has fragmented. She learns the entire post-Endor power structure she had been kept in reserve for has dissolved. She turns the fleet outward. She decides to unleash destruction on the New Republic. This is the reveal scene that does not exist on film. Anderson built the moment as a clean, structural shock. The most secret Imperial admiral, kept off record for half a decade, with a fleet of flagship-grade warships and a research site that had birthed the Empire's superweapon program, walks out of a black hole cluster into a galaxy that thought the Empire was finished. The New Republic had been counting losses. The New Republic had been writing peace proposals with Imperial successors. Daala had not been on anybody's threat board. She did not need to be discovered. She announced herself. The campaign that followed is the documented arc fans still cite. Hydra was destroyed when Han Solo flew the Sun Crusher, a one-pilot superweapon prototype Daala's own facility had built, through the Star Destroyer's bridge. The bridge crew died. The ship rolled out of formation. Daala committed an act of genocide on the colony of Eal Shah by attacking it on Dantooine. She brought her remaining fleet to Mon Calamari, the New Republic's shipyard world. The Manticore was destroyed during the assault. Daala retreated to the Cauldron Nebula. The basilisk was destroyed when Kip Duron used the Sun Crusher to detonate the entire nebula. Daala fell back to the Maw with one Star Destroyer left. The Gorgon survived. 3 of her 4 flagships had been destroyed inside a single Anderson trilogy publishing cycle. Jedi Search, Dark Apprentice, Champions of the Force, all 3 in 1994. And here is what's strange. Daala did not stay finished. Anderson brought her back in Darksaber, Bantam Spectra, October 1995. She emerges again. She allies with Pelion, the former second-in-command to Grand Admiral Thrawn. They try to unify the scattered Imperial remnant. The attempt fails. The conference of Imperial warlords she has called together ends with several of them murdering each other. Her plan collapses. Daala, characteristically, walks away from her own coalition. She transfers command to Pelion, passing the Imperial military authority she had assembled to the most competent surviving officer in the Empire, and steps out of the spotlight. That is itself an unusual character decision. Most Imperial warlords in the post-Endor literature die holding on to power. Daala hands it off. Bantam closed the trilogy and the immediate aftermath book on Daala by 1995, and the character was put on the shelf. Then Del Rey took the publishing license in 1999. Then Lucasfilm started a new, long arc, the New Jedi Order series across 19 novels through 2003, then Legacy of the Force, then Fate of the Jedi. And Daala came back again. Legacy of the Force ran from 2006 to 2008, 9 novels in 3 years, written by Troy Denning, Aaron Alston, and Karen Travis in alternating rotation. Alston handled Betrayal in May 2006, Exile in March 2007, and Fury in November 2007. Travis handled Bloodlines, Sacrifice, and Revelation. Denning handled Tempest, Inferno, and the closer, Invincible. In the middle of that arc, a mysterious admiral commanding a fleet of experimental warships appears alongside 100 Mandalorian mercenaries and drives the Galactic Alliance fleet into retreat. The admiral is Daala. By the closing book, Invincible, by Denning, May 13, 2008, Daala is the Chief of State of the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. The same republic she had spent 15 years trying to destroy now hands her its top political office. The Fate of the Jedi series, 9 more novels, Del Rey, 2009 through 2012, keeps her in that role. Her regime is documented as draconian. Her conflict with the Jedi Order escalates. 2 separate coups d'etats remove her from power, one led by the Jedi Council, the other led by members of the Alliance Senate. She is arrested. The position of Chief of State is suspended, and the authority is redistributed to a triumvirate. That is where her final on-page arc lands. Fans inside Legends have argued for over a decade about the Chief of State turn. One faction reads it as character growth, a strategist who learned to translate military command into political authority. Another faction reads it as the late EU breaking the character, taking the Imperial Admiral and dressing her up as a Republican executive. The argument is real, and it is unsettled. The brief asks us to flag it, rather than resolve it. Honor the flag. The point is not whether the late arc worked. The point is that there is a late arc. 60-some novels into the Legends timeline, Daala is still on the page. So count the pages. Jedi Search, Dark Apprentice, Champions of the Force, Darksaber. 4 Anderson novels with Daala as the central or driving antagonist. 3 Legacy of the Force novels with Daala in the fleet. 9 Fate of the Jedi novels with Daala running the Galactic Alliance. 16 novels minimum across 2 publishing houses, 2 decades, and a half-dozen authors. Across the X-Wing series and Isard's Revenge, Stackpole gave Isard 5 novels. The on-page material between the 2 characters runs 8,000 pages plus. That is the figure that matters. Now turn to the other side of the comparison. Snoke. The Force Awakens, December 18th, 2015. Snoke's screen time is 2 minutes and 4 seconds, 1.5% of the film. He appears as a hologram. He has 1 scene. The Last Jedi, December 15th, 2017. Snoke appears in his throne room. The throne room sequence runs roughly 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how you count the lightsaber dual framing. He is killed by Kylo Ren before the sequence ends. He never returns. The character's total screen time across both films lands somewhere between 7 and 9 minutes. The brief calls it 9. 9 is the high end of supportable. 9 is the number we use. And his backstory was not written. J.J. Abrams introduced him in 2015 as a powerful figure on the dark side of the Force. No name, no origin, no apparatus. Andy Serkis, the actor who motion captured the character, has stated in interviews that the backstory was still being figured out when Rian Johnson started writing The Last Jedi. Johnson killed the character without explaining him. 4 years later, the tie-in material for The Rise of Skywalker retconned Snoke into an artificial strand cast created by the resurrected Palpatine. A Palpatine clone puppet, in other words. Not a character, a retroactive placeholder. Look at what that costs the trilogy in structural terms. The First Order has no documented commander above Kylo Ren. The motivation engine that should have driven the war is empty. The audience is told there is a leader. The audience is shown a hologram and a throne room. The leader is killed before the audience learns who he was. The franchise spent 2 films establishing a villain who turned out to be a placeholder, then retconned him as somebody else's puppet, then closed the trilogy with that somebody else, Palpatine, returning. 2 films of antagonist building, undone. Compare that to the cost of using Daala. Daala arrives with a fleet, a research site, and a Tarkin patronage Disney would not have had to invent. The motivation is in the books. The visuals are in the books. The fleet has names. Disney owned Daala from October 30th, 2012, the day the Lucasfilm acquisition closed for $4.05 billion. Disney owned Isard from the same day. Disney owned the Lusankya, the Maw Installation, the Krytos virus, the 4 Star Destroyers, the Bacta War, the entire X-Wing publishing arc, the Jedi Academy trilogy, the Legacy of the Force novels, the Fate of the Jedi novels. They had the IP. They had the books in their archive. They had everything. What they did with it is the record. The Lucasfilm Story Group was initiated by Kathleen Kennedy in 2012 and formally founded as a division in 2013. Kiri Hart led it. Pablo Hidalgo, Rain Roberts, and Carrie Beck were among the early members. The group's stated purpose was to unify Star Wars canon under a single continuity. Kennedy's first move was to make the story group's senior development desk entirely female. That is the on-record reorganization. On April 25, 2014, StarWars.com published the announcement that the entire expanded universe was being rebranded as Star Wars Legends and would not be canonical to the new sequel trilogy. The statement reads, in part, and the brief is right to handle this carefully, in order to give maximum creative freedom to the filmmakers and also preserve an element of surprise and discovery for the audience, Star Wars Episodes 7 to 9 will not tell the same story told in the post-Return of the Jedi expanded universe. That is the on-record decision. What is not on record is the specific consideration of any individual EU character. The story group's internal deliberations are not public. There is no leaked document that says, "We discussed Isard and chose Snoke instead." What there is the outcome, the structural fact. In April of 2014, Disney threw the entire post-Return of the Jedi expanded universe in a drawer and labeled it Legends. By December of 2015, the sequel trilogy's principal antagonist was a hologram named Snoke, with no backstory, 2 minutes of screen time, and a future plan that had not been written. Disney's writers' rooms preferred to build an original villain than to adapt a documented one. They had the option. They documented they were not taking it. And then they showed they could do it. In 2017, Disney shipped Battlefront 2 with Iden Versio as the campaign protagonist. Inferno Squad commander, former Imperial loyalist, female lead. The character works. The character is voiced and motion captured by Janina Gavankar. She has a daughter who appears in subsequent material. Iden Versio is the proof that Disney can put a female Imperial commander on screen. She is also a defector. She crosses to the rebellion. She is not a warlord. The film trilogy's villain seat was opened through 3 films, and Disney did not put a female Imperial commander in it. Versio in a video game. Phasma in a chrome helmet with 2 minutes of screen time across 2 films. 2 female Imperial roles in 9 years of Disney Star Wars. Daala and Isard, in the books on the shelf, never crossed over. Look at the on-page comparison one more time. Isard had a 19-kilometer warship buried under the capital, a bioweapon that killed only non-humans, a war fought over the cure that ran through one planet, and a sequence of operations that took 5 novels to close out. Daala had 4 Star Destroyers, a black hole installation that built the Death Star, a Tarkin patronage that the New Republic could not have predicted, and a 16-novel arc across 2 decades that ended with her running the very Republic she had been built to destroy. Snoke had 2 scenes, no name origin, 1 master, and a death in his own throne room. The math is uneven. The decision was institutional. The institutional pattern is what to underline. Disney did not invent Snoke because Snoke was a better character. Disney invented Snoke because invention let the writers' rooms work without the EU's continuity weight. The trade-off was that the audience had to accept a villain with no prior. Daala and Isard both arrived in their respective books with priors: Tarkin patronage, patricide, a captured flagship, a research site, a Star Destroyer count. The priors were the entire point. The priors did the work the films would otherwise have to do in screen time, and the audience caught it. The Not a Jedi video, What the First Order Should Have Been, ran on this channel, ran into the high 40,000 view range, and the comment section recorded the response. The first comment, 306 likes, asks specifically for Daala or Isard in a film. The reader knew the names. The reader did not need to be told. The reader, 10 years after the decanonization, is still asking. The audience already knew the answer. Here is what the audience didn't get. They didn't get the Krytos crisis on screen. They didn't get the Lusankya breaking through the planetary shields and emerging from beneath the capital. They didn't get the Maw Installation. They didn't get the 4 Star Destroyers coming out of a black hole cluster in formation. They didn't get the patricide and promotion ladder Isard climbed. They didn't get Daala as Tarkin's protege pulling rank on Pelion. They didn't get the Bacta War. They got Snoke. Then they got Snoke killed. Then they got the retcon that Snoke had been a Palpatine puppet all along. Mara Jade deserves her own video. So does Talon Card. So does Lumia. So does Vistara Kai. So does every other Bantam and Del Rey character Disney decanonized in a single April 2014 press release. That list runs into the hundreds. Today the indictment is narrow. 2 characters, 2 arcs, both female, both Imperial, both Tarkin-tier, both available on the day Disney started writing Episode 7, neither used. Ysanne Isard never returned. Natasi Daala never returned. The Lusankya is buried under Coruscant in a continuity Disney decanonized in April 2014. The Maw Installation is in the same vault. Stackpole is 68 years old. Anderson is 64. Aaron Alston died in February 2014, 57 days before Disney threw out the books he wrote. The women Disney refused to film have 8,000 pages of on-page action between them. Snoke had 9 minutes. The 306 like audience comment is still on the video. First comment, top of the page, asking 10 years later for Daala or Isard in a film. The audience already knows. Disney still doesn't film them.